Hey y'all, it's Christian. Welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to touch on a subject that has been circulating around the HBCU world regarding
donations.
Recently, there was a multi-million-dollar donation made by Mackenzie Scott, the ex-wife of Jeff Bezos. She is a philanthropist and she's been donating much of her wealth to different causes, and so this time HBCUs were on the receiving end of her generous donations. I believe she chose 6 schools to receive $20 million each, and the schools were Howard, Hampton, Spelman, Morehouse, Tuskegee, and Xavier University. For a few of the schools on the list, this $20 million donation was the largest donation that they've received ever. So this news was good news for a lot of people, but I do think the reactions were a little bit varied, and there was a much stronger response from students at other HBCUs. I just want to give my perspective as a spelmanite, seeing that I attend one of the institutions that supposedly gets all of this money and has name recognition and is a part of the big 3. I think that I'm able to acknowledge that multiple things can be true at once, which I think a lot of people are ignoring in these debates. And I'm also able to point out the flaws about when these donations do happen and what happens with the money. I love Spelman. I love being a part of the cult, but as this channel and multiple videos have proven, I'm not afraid to speak on what happens and if I don't think it's right. While I love the discourse that goes on around these donations because they need to be talked about, one thing that I cannot get with is people speaking on experiences that they literally don't know anything about. I saw a tweet that came out after it was announced that Spelman was one of the schools that got donations, and it basically said that Spelman doesn't need any more money and that other schools should get the recognition in these donations. I agree with the second part. HBCUs are severely underfunded, but it's just like, who are you to say what Spelman needs and doesn't need? First of all, and I don't know about my other Spelman sisters, but for me, my first thought and prayer when I read that Spelman has received a multi-million-dollar donation is, will it be going towards scholarships? I would be sounding like a broken record if I went into how much and how hard it is to pay for Spelman, so I won't even do that. But that's a big reason why I'm not gonna say, oh, Spelman doesn't need the money just because they got a donation before. Going into my 3rd year, I realized how much of a blessing it is to even be able to say that, because I know that I started with a lot of people, but everybody's not gonna be there when we graduate because of financial reasons. So yeah, every time I read that, I'm going to hope that some of that money touches a student account or funds a scholarship that allows someone to stay until the very end. Another reason, and not to say that Spelman isn't a beautiful campus, but if you've been in some of the dorms or in a building that hasn't recently been remodeled, some money could be thrown into those things as well, you know, just to make the most beautiful campus even more beautiful and livable and enjoyable. And more recently, in the context of COVID-19, this pandemic has been devastating to many colleges' finances. There have been many employees who have been laid off or furloughed. So I'm not gonna say Spelman doesn't need the money, because there are people who need their jobs back and there are people who need to be able to feed their families. And then at this point, I'm able to do what I think a lot of Spell House people aren't. This is where I can step away from the elitism and blindness and say that we do be getting these donations. I do be seeing a lot of headlines where HBCUs are getting donations, and Spelman, Morehouse, and Howard, they are mentioned a lot. I do think that more money should be donated to underfunded schools like Savannah State University. That money would have been great to keep a school like Bennett College open and not at risk for losing their accreditation. Morris Brown is right down the street from the AUC. They're a part of the AUC, yet there are only a handful of students that still attend it. Money should be thrown their way. I can say that because I'm not blind. I know I said that you shouldn't speak on experiences that you haven't lived, but I can imagine the frustration of those schools that are underfunded or underrepresented, you know, just loving the school that you're at but seeing how much they're struggling and suffering And then you see a school like Spelman, Morehouse, and Howard who has name recognition behind them. I can see how that's frustrating, and I could see why the call to action is necessary. But I also think that some of the anger can be misdirected. And there are a lot of like red flags that pop up out of these conversations. The red flag that I take the most issue with that I was just discussing is saying that one school doesn't need one thing because another school is dealing with the same thing. I've also heard people try to discredit Spelman because it's named after a white person. It was funded by white people, which a lot of HBCUs were, and somehow that's a big reason why we shouldn't be getting donations. We're fighting each other when we really need to be holding the people in power and the people who make the donations accountable. If you're making donations and you claim to care about the advancement of Black people and you want to fund their education and their futures and their careers, you can't let your knowledge and recognition stop at big name schools. Granted, a lot of people make donations to institutions where they know people, where they have fostered relationships. That's the job of HBCU presidents. They are supposed to build a network of people who can help their institution. So that's one thing. But if you're really actively looking into like, how can I make a difference in young Black people's lives, do your research. There are over 100 HBCUs in this country, and many of them are on the brink of closing or losing their accreditation. So if you're a wealthy person and you're looking into funding an HBCU, please look at the list in its entirety. And even if you want to donate to schools based on ranking or who you know or whatever, just keep in mind that every HBCU needs money. So just as bad as you think Spelman, Morehouse, or Howard needs donations, there's another school that needs it just as much. So just keep that in mind if there happens to be a millionaire watching this video. And as much as we need to hold the people accountable who are making the donations, we also have to hold admin accountable. These people know where the money is going. These people can have control about where the money goes, especially if the donation, like the one we just received, is unrestricted. So if they wanted money to go towards scholarships, they could. If they wanted to reallocate the funds that be going towards lawn care, they can. Alum are usually really good with making sure that the money that they donate to the institution goes directly to student accounts. And that's a pledge that I've already committed to making. Once I come into some money, the donations will go directly to students, because if you give it to an institution and they have the power to put it wherever they want to, there's no guarantee that it's actually helping anybody. And that's been the issue with a lot of these donations. Students like myself who go to these schools that get these donations are like, well, I haven't seen the money benefit me at all. And going back to that $40 million donation from Netflix, Spelman decided to use that money to give 20 incoming freshmen full scholarship rides over the next 10 years. So that means that one lucky little girl who is not even in high school yet will have a full scholarship to Spelman College, when I have seen multiple GoFundMes over the past 2 years of current students. They've been dropped from their classes. They've packed up their things because they're just sure that they're not going to have the money by the time the tuition is due. This is an issue. As a full scholarship to Spelman is a blessing. To any girl, to any family, it's a blessing. But I do wish more consideration was put into where the money is actually needed. What makes a school great isn't the lawn. It isn't a fancy smancy whatever to make it more appealing. It's the students. So invest in your students. Make sure that when they walk through your gates, they're able to leave your gates. I know it's not possible for me to present my perspective in a completely unbiased way, but I try to remain as objective as possible and see both sides, because I do. It's kind of a difficult position to be in, because while I want more for my institution, I want more for all HBCUs. I think the goal for a lot of us is that we want our future kids, the future generation, to have just as many HBCU options as we did. If you get nothing else out of this video, my main points are, I think all HBCUs need money. I don't think money should stop coming to the schools that get money. I think that money should be used more responsibly when they do come to these schools. I think that more people need to be held accountable when it comes to handling this money. And I think that we should continue talking about this, because somebody gonna see it. But yeah, I hope that y'all enjoyed this video, and I hope that y'all have a wonderful week and that you're staying safe. Until my next video, bye.